Thank you, Sam, and I want to welcome everybody. As I'm looking through the slides, it looks like I got an extra title slide thrown in here, so hopefully I'm going to be referencing the slides correctly for what's in the materials. You do have some lengthy materials. You've got a booklet that my two little fingers that know how to type have typed up, which is, with all the attachments and everything, it's about 45 pages long. That's really what you should be looking at more than the slides, although if you've printed out the slides, certainly you're free to go through and make any notes as we go through there. Some notes about the presentation for today. We are going to be talking about the A to Z of Regulation E. So I had a lot of questions that came in and talked about, are you going to talk about the remittance rules? And in fact, got an email about 10 minutes before I had to log on to the phone call here that said, are you going to talk about the remittance rules in any degree? Well, since we're covering everything from disclosures to claims to debit cards to gift cards, the whole gamut, there's just not enough time to cover all that. If you're looking for remittance rules, and I'll probably reiterate this when we get to that page, John Burnett's going to be doing a session just on remittance rules in July. I believe it's on July the 18th. There's like 135 pages to the materials on BOL. We've already got it included in Regulation E to show that what's going to be coming. We're going to talk briefly about it today, but it's just an overview today of a lot of these sections. That same thing's going to apply to gift card rules and overdrafts as well, because the banks that are doing those particular issues, and most banks or many banks are doing the overdrafts, fewer are doing gift cards or payroll cards, but you've got policies and procedures in place. So a lot of the purpose today is to make sure that you're on track for doing that. But as we go through this, I do have citations to the regulation. You do have a link to the regulation that will, from the Bureau, which is assumed ownership, quote unquote, of the regulation from the Fed. And I've got the new citations just about every place through the materials, except for areas where I took screen captures of PDFs as an example from something that a regulator provides. Those don't have 1005 dot whatever, it has 205. And just replace 10 for the 2 when you see any of those old citations if you go through and look at that. I think that everybody's beginning to grasp the new citations that we have. We are going to talk about claim scenarios. That's going to be in the last half. There's always a lot of questions about claims. So we're going to try and answer those towards the last half. So we're going to talk about the details of Regulation E, the A to Z of it, not just the claims. I do a claim session later in the year, which is just 2 hours of claims. As I talk about claims, I'm not talking about ECH rules that are specific to NACHA. I'm not talking about Visa or MasterCard rules. Brian Crow does a session on those, did one just about 2 weeks ago, I think, or a week ago. And that's going to be, if it's not already, it's going to be in the library for download if you're wanting something that's going to be particular to those vendor rules, those debit card rules, because I can hit some of the basic things, but when you get into all the chargeback rules and everything, that's really kind of a specialty, and Reg E is a foundation that those are built on, but Reg E is not the rule on which they are built. You also have some resources available to you. On the screen there, I've given you a link to Regulation E under the alphabet soup section of BOL, and again, that already includes the remittance rules, and you'll see annotations where this is what's going to change in February of 2013 when that rule takes effect. This is what's going to change, etc. You've got a little Reg E quiz that you can use for training other people. I've got a link to a flow chart that we're going to look at in just a minute from the OCC. There will be, I came from a national bank. There will be several times that I talk about the OCC. They have done some things particular to Regulation E. If you're not a national bank and your bank does not have a substitute for this, then you can use it because we're all following the same rules under Regulation E. I wouldn't tell my Fed examiner, well, here's what the OCC says you have to do. That's why we did it this way. if my examiner has already provided some guidance, use your examiner's guidance. At the end, as we get into the claims, there's a lot of if statements that you look at for claims. If the debit happened at this particular time, when the customer notified us, did they send us a written claim when we requested it? There's a lot of ifs that fall down to how much liability for an unauthorized transfer a customer has versus the bank. There is a tool that I've created. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's pretty easy to follow. We're going to look at some screen captures of that towards the end. There's a link on that resource page that's going to help you get through that. Some of the materials that you have two versions of an error report. And these are things that these are given to you in Word form so that you can do whatever you want with them. You can adjust them to your bank's liking. But when you look at those, as we talk about claims here in the next hour and a half, whenever we get to it, in that sample EFT error report as an example, one of them has a time and date at the very top. It is very important that your bank log down the date and time that you get a notice of an error. And that's why that's one of the first slots. What should happen is the receptionist or whoever gets this message. Andy has a claim about his ATM card. Is your card lost? I'm going to log down that it's 39 minutes after the hour. It's May 3rd. And the next thing I'm going to do is go in and put that card on a hot status so that it can't be used. Why? Because if that card's used at 1:40 in the afternoon, Central Time, 40 minutes after the hour, that liability is on the bank because the bank has now been notified. That customer essentially will know when they came in, and they may try to hedge back a little bit. So it's important that you date and time those. So you've got a sample error report, and it's going to include the information that's going to be important to your claim. And the information is sometimes laid out in a very specific path so that you can process your claim and investigate that claim and then gather the information from the consumer as far as what they say happened, so that you're going to have that as you do your investigation. So you've got two variances of that report. You've got the investigation letters because it's going to be important. We'll discuss that if you deny a claim, you do have to provide a written response to the consumer as to why it was denied. There are certain things that have to be in that letter, such as the consumer has the right to look at your file to see what it was you investigated. That has to be in your letter. So you've got a series of letters that go through everything from here's your provisional credit to your claims denied were taken back to provisional credit to your claims approved, here's the money's available. I go through all of the variances that you will have, and you're free to use these letters among your institution. You paid for this program, you can go for it. And then, of course, you've got the slides, and then you've got the materials. But you've got several items that are going to be very helpful to you. You also have an EFT claim workflow. This is something that will somewhat follow the Excel program we're going to look at. And what this unauthorized workflow form does is to use it during an audit or to use it by your investigator or both. But it covers everything from we're going to do this claim on a standard 10-day investigation, a 45-day investigation, or it's going to be a new account exception under a 90-day claim, or it's a POS or foreign transaction, and we're going to do this under a 90-day claim. We'll be talking about all the specifics here, but suffice it to say that if you take this form and you begin to fill it out, you're going to know here's when the customer notified us, here's when I have to have certain things done by. And that's how you're going to be able to follow through and ensure that your claim is done in a timely manner. So that's what that form will help you with. It essentially gives you a tickler file so that things are going to be done when things need to be done. Now, we're looking at slide 6. In the manual, if I referenced it in the manual, I probably said slide 5. I'm not sure if I have those references cross or not. But as you look at that, what you see here is a sample of a flow chart. If you're looking at your materials now, if you go all the way back to page 44, I believe it is, of your material, so it's the last page, the inside of the last page.